This one is for the dogs. I am really excited. I have had this on my mind for months. Finally got around to it. This is a dog bandana with a scrunchy back. So it has elastic, and all you do is you stretch it and you put it over the dog's head. It doesn't have to go over a collar. You don't have to tie it. And if you do it right, it's not going to be tight at all, but it's going to stay on and be super cute. So I went over and chatted with my friend Riley, this cute little Wheaten Terrier. He barely wanted to sit still for a photo, so I didn't even try and get a video with him. But he did test that my measurements and everything work well, and he looked super, super cute. You have to agree, right? So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make these scrunchy bandanas in 4 different sizes. I am also going to tell you how to adjust them to be the perfect size for your dog's neck. I'm going to show you how to make a basic one. This one, it's the same on the front and the back, and it was made out of a square of fabric. And I'm also going to show you how to make them reversible. Let me know in the comments what combo you would do if you do these reversible, and also which one you think you would prefer to do, just from a square or the reversible, so that you can have more variety from one bandana. All right, let's get started. Just like scrunchies that you wear in your hair, this has elastic inside gathered material. It has to be gathered so that when you stretch the elastic, your fabric can stretch. So it'll only stretch as far as your fabric goes. So our fabric over top of that has to be longer. I'm going to show you how to make them out of 1 square of fabric and 1 rectangle of fabric and 1 piece of elastic. That's what this one looks like. So it's the same on both sides, and that is a bit quicker. Or I'm going to show you how to do them so that they are double-sided. So this one, I centered the covered bridge, and it has the covered bridge on the scrunchie, so that's what you would see on the outside. Or you can flip it and have the leaves. So then you have fashion options for the dog. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of how to center and fussy cut something, but I do have a written pattern that you can get in my Etsy shop, and the link will be below this video. And that has all the details to use directional fabric, to do the 1-sided, the 2-sided, and it shows you everything you need for 4 different sizes of these bandanas. In the written pattern, you can also find templates for all 4 sizes. Then the other things, I highly recommend a hot ruler. Super helpful. I'm going to show you how I use that when we do some pressing. You don't need it, but I'm finding more and more uses for this every day. Then a piece of elastic. For this one, we're going to be doing this medium size that starts from a 10-inch square of fabric. We're going to use a 9-inch piece of elastic, a rotary cutter. I'm going to use my quilter's clapper, safety pin for turning some things and putting the elastic in, and the sewing machine, obviously. Those are the basic things that we need. Now, before we get started, I want to talk about this template. So I don't remember where I heard this. It might have been somebody in a comment a while ago, but I bought these flexible cutting mats. It's just thin plastic at the Dollar Tree a while ago, and I have yet to use them. So we are going to break these in today. They basically said, if you're going to be using a template a bit, make it out of the plastic so that it's not going to get worn out. That's assuming you don't need to pin it to your fabric, which we won't. So we are going to make a template for this medium dog bandana out of this plastic. This is also going to be helpful if you wanted to fussy cut, because you're going to be able to see through it where you can't see through the paper to see what's underneath there. Lining the top edge of the plastic up with the top edge of the template. Then I'm just going to take a ruler. I'm going to go a little bit below the point, hold that down. And then I'm taking an old rotary blade. Don't freak out. This is not new. This isn't what I've been using for fabric. This is an older, duller one. So I'm going to use it on the plastic. It will probably be the last time it's used. So I cut through there. I'll keep that for a future pattern. And then I'm just going to keep lining this up and cut on these lines so that I have this template shape out of the plastic. And then you can either use it, like make yourself a sticker to put on there, or use a Sharpie to write what it is. All right, so now I have a plastic template that I can use over and over again for this medium-sized dog bandana. So this template is going to make our medium bandana, which is this one. It folds over a little bit with the scrunchie side, but this is the size that we are going to be making. And if you don't have the templates, it's totally fine. I'm going to show you how to make it out of squares and how to do this side cutting on your own. So I'm going to start by showing you the basic bandana, where it's going to be the same fabric on both sides of the bandana and the scrunchie band. So we just need 2 pieces of fabric, a 10-inch square, and then a 12 by 3 to make our scrunchie cover. So what you're going to do with the squares, you're going to turn it and you're going to fold it in half, right sides together, matching these points. And then I just finger press that. Then if you have the templates from the pattern that you can get on Etsy, you can just put that down and you can cut these based on the template. But if you don't, I'm going to show you how to do that. So you're going to line it up on your mat and you're going to put these top points on a line. This should be on a line too, if everything's nice and squared off. Then you're going to take a ruler and you're going to measure 2 inches in from that point, and you're going to trim. And then you're going to do the same thing on the other side. If you've watched my video about how to make an over-the-collar bandana, this is going to look really familiar because it's the same process, but for this one, we're going to be adding the elastic. So you're not going to have to put it over top of a collar. You don't have to worry about it. You just get it over the dog's head and it is good to go. Now that we have trimmed these sides, I put it on my ironing surface. This is a portable ironing board. If you want to make your own, I'm going to put a link in the video description to show you where to find that video tutorial. It's quite easy. We're going to open this up and we're going to put it face down because now we are going to fold a 1/4 inch in on both of these sides. And that is where the hot ruler comes in. So I love this. It's flexible, feels kind of fuzzy, and you can iron right on it. So it's a great way to just really get accurate folds, and it can go up to 4 inches. The fuzziness helps it hold the fabric. So when you're folding it over and testing it and ironing it, kind of holds it in place. So I've just positioned this, I'm folding it over so that I can see that it's on that 1/4 inch line. And I'm going to take my iron and just go right over the fabric and the hot ruler. And I'm going to come back with my quilter's clapper. That's going to absorb some of the heat and set that seam. Now, because you have this ruler, there is some thickness, so it's not as tight of a fold as it could be. So I usually just come back and press it one more time. Hit it with my clapper. If you're not familiar with a clapper, this is an unfinished piece of hardwood. It's usually oak or maple. I'm not sure which one this is, but they're usually cut so that it's really comfortable to hold. And like I said, it absorbs the heat and sets that pressed edge. I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to do this side. These do come in different lengths. If you're going to invest in one, I would get the 14-inch because if you decide you like them, you're going to be using them for some longer things, and it's easier to have the longest one you can get, so you don't have to move it as many times when you're pressing longer pieces than this. Now we are going to put it right side up again. We're going to fold it back the way it was. You don't need to press that. Kind of finger press it if you want to. Then I'm going to grab some clips. I'm going to clip this in place, and then we're just going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam down the bottom. I call it the bottom. So the 2 sides of the point of the bandana. Now here's another tip. If you are newer or teaching kids to sew or just find it a little more tricky to figure out exactly where to stop for that 1/4 inch, you can take a ruler and mark the 1/4 inch line here. So this is just a heat erasable pen. You could use a pencil, but sometimes I'll just draw that line. It's because that makes it super easy. I just sew and I know to stop there instead of having to look at my foot. So that's a great tip for beginners or if you just want to be moving really fast. Now the other thing I'll get ready before I go to the sewing machine is the scrunchie holder. We're just going to fold it in half. If you want to press it, you can, just so it stays down better. And we're going to sew a 1/4 inch on this raw edge. Put 2 little clips to hold that. So that's the second thing we're going to sew. Because I'm starting off the edge of the fabric, I'm going to use a leader fabric, which is just a scrap piece of fabric. And I'm going to start sewing on there so that I don't have to pull up the bobbin thread, and I'm going to make sure there are no knots on my actual project. So I'll just start sewing like this. And then once I get onto my project, you just have to remember to go backwards a little bit to secure those threads. Then I'm at that line, so I'm just gonna turn. And you wanna make sure these are staying folded in the direction that we press them as we get to those, because we will catch them right at the end. So you wanna make sure that doesn't get turned up if it hits your needle plate like that. And then I'm gonna use my scissors to hold it down so I don't accidentally sew my finger. Then I'm just gonna go daisy chain right into my fabric scrunchie where I have to sew down the one side. I'm gonna trim those apart. And then I'm going to cut this corner or trim it. And I like to do it in 2 longer cuts instead of 1 straight across. And that makes it so there's less fabric that needs to be in that point when we turn it right side out. The first thing we need to do is turn both of these right side out. So to turn the tube, I can't use a tube turner because both ends are open. So I'm just going to take a safety pin and put it in there from the outside, then push it in and just work that so that it goes right side out. Once you get it started, it's pretty easy. It's not very long. Pull those ends out, and then we are going to press with the seam on one side. So just kind of roll it to make sure that none of that fabric is tucked in, and we're going to have a nice even strip of fabric to put our elastic into. Just give that a little press. Now this is a little bit harder to turn in right side out. We have to go through one of these holes. Actually, it's not super hard. The 8-inch, using an 8-inch square, that one's a little trickier because it's only about 1.5 inches open there. This one's not too bad. You turn it right side out, but keep the edges that we folded under. Get that point out. And now we need to press this, making sure that that seam is right on the edge and that the fabric is all rolled out. It's not folded under. Make sure this that we pressed stays inside and we don't press it weird. So now you have a decision to make about this. You can leave it like this and we can attach the elastic and it will look like this one. So we don't have any stitching here. We just attach this scrunchy part. On this one, I did do some extra sewing. So I top stitched around here and I top stitched across the top, even though it was just a square. And that's really just to hold it in place. It's a little bit more decorative. You don't have to do it because if you wash this, you're just going to repress it the way that we just did. So if you're making a lot, I would recommend skipping that step because, again, just another step that takes a little bit of time, unless you want that to be part of the decorativeness of the bandana. So now we need to put the elastic into the casing. So our elastic is 9 inches, this is 12. It could have been longer. I could have done 15 and made it a little bit more scrunchy looking, but this is what I did. Now I'm going to use the safety pin again. I'm going to feed the elastic in there until the end of the elastic is at the end of the fabric. We don't want to put it all the way through because we need to tack this end. Okay, there we go. So I have this end of the elastic lined up with this edge. Now I'm going to take it to the sewing machine. I'm going to sew forward back and then another line forward back to attach that. Then I'm going to pull this the rest of the way through and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So let's head to the sewing machine. Well, it's a good thing I'm doing two because I forgot to hit record. So we have the elastic right at the edge, and now I'm going to sew forward and back twice to secure the fabric and the elastic. And nobody's going to see that. It's going to be inside the bandana. Just keep it within 1/2 inch of that edge. So now our pin is still in there, so we're going to pull that out. We're going to pull the fabric down. We're going to do the same thing to the other end. So you want to make sure you haven't twisted the elastic. Keep it nice and flat. Keep this part flat. Keep the ruffled, gathered part over here. And then we're just going to sew and attach. So they're both the same. This one is for the basic. It's the folded over, same on both sides. And this one is for the reversible, where it's a different fabric on each side. Same length, same way to make them. So now we just need to put them into the bandanas. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this into this opening 3/4 of an inch in. Take a ruler and see. So that's not quite, we're going to put it in a little bit more, But the way I have it measured and for the end sizes, it is assuming you're putting it in 3/4 of an inch on each side. So then I like to start on the outside of the bandana, and I'm going to pull up the bobbin thread. I'm going to start down so that we sew that whole part closed. So I'm going to put my foot down, my needle down, holding that thread, pull the needle up, give a little tug to get that bobbin thread up. I'm going to take tweezers, put them both under the foot, hold them while I go forward and back a few stitches. And doing this avoids any knot on the back. And now we're just going to sew a rectangle and the diagonals through the rectangle over top of these elastics. You want to make sure you do it before that 3/4 inch so that both of these edges are on the elastic. And then I'm going to go diagonal, corner to corner, just to make sure we're getting that nice and secure. So I'm just going to go over that top line again. So now it is attached on one side, and we're just going to fold it over. So basically wrap it around and do the same thing over here. And make sure you keep this straight and don't let it pull at a weird angle when you're sewing it down. And there it is, all done. That is our basic. And then you can just spread this fabric out a little bit. All right, so to do the reversible, you basically need the same shape as that 10-inch square with the edges cut off, but you need it to come from 2 pieces of fabric, one for the front and one for the back. So this is where I think the template really comes in handy, because then you're going to get that cut nice and easy. You do have to be careful that you're past that template when you're using your rotary cutter, because it will slice through it and change the shape if you're not paying close attention. I think it's going to be faster also to use a rotating cutting mat. You can make your own template out of fabric. If you started with the 10-inch square, cut those edges off, and then just cut it in half. That would be the same size as this template. Okay, so we have front and back, and then we also have these strips. So these are cut 1 3/4 inches by 12 inches so that when we sew them together, it's going to be equivalent to having a 3-inch piece folded in half and sewn together. All right, so I'm just going to put those right sides together, put a few clips on there because we're going to be sewing down both of the long sides with a 1/4 inch seam to make the casing for the elastic. And this will become the scrunchy part basically. All right, now we need the iron and our hot ruler again. So just like with the square, we're going to iron these edges over a 1/4 inch. Now doing the reversible takes a little bit more ironing when you're starting, but it's a lot easier to turn right side out than working from the original square. Because the original square, as you saw, you have to pull it all through this little space here to turn it right side out. But for this, the whole top is going to be open. So you're just flipping this part, and then we're sewing across the top. So we have these done, and then we need to fold this top edge down a 1/4 inch. The reversible bandanas will be about a 1/2 inch shorter than the square ones because the square one does not have this seam allowance up at the top. But I don't think you or any dog is really going to notice that slight discrepancy in size. All right, so now we're going to press the same 3 edges on the second fabric. I'm going to try it from the bottom and see if that is easier to do. Don't know that it really matters. If you're pulling up or pulling down, that's going to be personal preference. If you have one of these and try, let me know which way you usually do it. Do you pull your fabric up and over like I'm doing now, or do you do it from the top down like I did the last one? I'm curious. Sometimes just to get that super pressed, I turn it with the right side up and just go over it one more time. Make sure that all stays put where we want it. Now we're going to put these right sides together, lining these up, and that should line up the top as well. I'm just going to clip that top just so it stays in place while we're sewing the bottom. And I make a little mark, just makes it easier. And then clip here. And just like with the basic that we made out of a square, we're going to sew down here to here. And then we're going to clip that bottom, turn it right side out, and press. All right, so off to the sewing machine to sew the bandana and the scrunchie fabric. Now we're going to sew together the reversible one, and just like with the last one, I'm going to use this leader fabric. I should have done this first since I have to do two sides. I could have done one side, daisy chain to the bandana, and then the other side, but next time you can do it that way to begin with. And then just like with the other one, I'm going to clip the fabric at the point so that we're going to get that to fold better than if we had left all that bulk in there. And now back to the ironing board. All right, so for the reversible one, it's very similar to what we did for the basic bandana. I'm going to grab my safety pin. We're going to turn this fabric tube for the scrunchie part right side out. And because this is reversible, I did the reversible fabric on here as well. So when we're pressing it, we need to worry about getting those seams flattened out on both sides. The other one, we just had to worry about one side and the other side just was a fold. So I usually get it started and press and then keep going. Sometimes it just rolls back on itself if you try and do the whole length at the same time. Now for this one, it's way easier to turn right side out because the whole top is open. So you're just pushing that point out. You can use a turning tool or just do it as best you can with your fingers. And then you're, again, pushing that seam out. We're going to press along the bottom. So now this is why we had already pressed this so that it's going to be ready to go. We're just going to make sure that that top edge lines up. You go over it one more time. And we're going to clip that, making sure that these folded edges are lined up. In this one, you obviously have to sew across there or the bandana is just going to fall apart. So you can decide to only sew across the top to close it, or if you want it to be more consistent, you can sew across the top and then also down here. Just do not sew the sides closed, because that is where we are going to be adding the scrunchie elastic. And now we just need to get our elastic in here, just like we did with the other one. And this is a 3/4 inch piece of elastic that I am using. It is pretty tight if you're doing the small 8-inch, this tiny one, because this is a little bit smaller, so it's pretty much the same size, but it will work. So I would recommend either 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch. Okay, so I'm just getting that so that they're lined up. Sometimes I'll just put a clip on there and make sure that elastic doesn't sneak in there. But if it does, I just grab my tweezers that I keep at the sewing machine and pull it back because we want those even. Okay, so now the sewing machine, we're going to sew this, attach that, and then we're going to pull it through and attach the elastic on the other side. We need to sew across the top to sew these two pieces together. I can start with the leader fabric again. And I sew about 1/8 of an inch from the edge because we only folded it over 1/4 inch. So if we do a 1/4 inch seam, we're not necessarily going to be getting everything that was folded under. And then you can decide if you want to sew down here and up here. It's pretty much a look. Would be consistent with that, but this part you're not going to see as much because it will be around the dog's neck. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to leave it as is. Then you're just going to add the scrunchie elastic just like we did on the first one, making sure that the fabrics match. So you don't want to do it this way with the green up. If you want this to be reversible and look like it coordinates, you want to have the fabric of the scrunchie matching this when you put it in and sew that together. Now, when you're doing these, you want the resting size of the elastic and the bandana to be 1 to 2 inches larger than your dog's neck. So if you're making this for a dog that you know, just measure their neck, not tight, just kind of loosely around, and then make it 1 inch or 2 bigger. And if you need to, you can change the size of the elastic based on the size of your bandana. So you might make your bandana first and then figure out how much you need to add, always remembering that you need to put the elastic about 3/4 of an inch inside, so account for that when you're doing your math, and you can make it perfect for your puppy. And then, just like with the other one, you're just gonna wrap it around, make sure you're not twisting it, and put it in and sew the other side. So what do you think? Are you going to give these a try? I think this would be a fantastic thing to sew and sell as well. Why not do a twofer? Do a scrunchie dog bandana and a scrunchie for the owner, and they can match. They can just look so cute out on their walks with the person with the matching scrunchie to the dog bandana. I think that people will love that for a gift, for themselves. Could be a little upsell for you. Just go with that scrunchie theme. So let me know what you think of that. If you give it a try, let me know how it goes. And make sure you have subscribed to my channel. Click the notification bell so that YouTube lets you know when I post new tutorials, and happy sewing!